Okay, so we are catching back up with the Wolverine comics, and one of the things you remember here, a little bit of catch up, that Wolverine was basically taken by the X-Man Beast, who'd become more and more extreme to the point that he's just a straight up villain, and Wolverine was being used by Beast to essentially kill anybody that stood against the mutant population. Now, eventually, Wolverine was able to break free of that control, and where we are right now is that Beast has effectively taken off. That the main base of operations, known as the Point for the X-Force team, which is basically the mutants' version of the CIA, that was actually a giant being, right? Just a giant robotic type being that Beast had built, and then he left and took off to the ocean floor. The reason for that is that being so far underwater that no one can really track him, and so this allows Beast to basically operate with impunity. The other part of this is that Wolverine did eventually catch up to Beast, and he did kill him. But what we found out is that ever the genius of the X-Men group, Hank McCoy, had redundancies, that as soon as he was killed, a duplicate immediately emerged, right? It like literally his death triggered the activation of a clone of himself. That clone emerges with all the memories of Beast intact, including exactly how it was that he was killed, and he gets to work on producing more of himself. Now, what we end up finding out here is that in addition to duplicating himself, what Beast has also done is he's cloned Wolverine. Now, here's one of the big caveats when it comes to this, and Marvel doesn't really explain this. One of the big questions people have had is that whenever Wolverine is killed and the X-Men resurrect him and bring him back to life, how does he get his adamantium back? So that is due to a member of the Five, right? The 5 mutants that resurrect dead mutants, bring them back to life. One of those guys is named Proteus. He has the ability to alter reality, but only in a really small space. Say, for example, maybe the size of your house. And so this allows him to literally alter reality and to create adamantium strictly for Wolverine. It's only done on that basis, him or like Laura Kinney X-23. Nobody else gets it if they're not supposed to have it. Beast seemingly does not have that ability, so we don't know exactly how it is he was able to clone Wolverine and bring his adamantium in without having someone like Proteus that can do it for him. But regardless of how you slice it, what Beast does is he starts sending Wolverine yet again after all these people that are either stealing from Krakoa, that politically stand against Krakoa, anybody who is against the mutant population in some form or fashion. But he's sending in all the Wolverines at one time. Now, the reason why this is so effective and the reason why it works is that Beast learned from his previous actions, that when he had Wolverine, the main Wolverine, under his control, he was basically mindless. He was like a feral version. So he would just go running in and just attack things. By having like 5 versions of Wolverine out there, it allows one guy to eliminate the target, and then it allows the other 4 to be lookouts for anything else that needs to be destroyed, or to allow them all to operate at the same time. So instead of relying on one Wolverine to take out the target, then take out the cameras, then remove any evidence that he was there or anything like that, all 5 can do it in a fraction of the time. So it's a very, very efficient system. Not only that, these are just the 5 that are here. There's like others that are consistently being created by Beast in case any one of those 5 are destroyed. And so for the Prime Wolverine himself, after killing Beast, he literally takes his body and he brings it directly to the Quiet Council, the governing body of the mutant population in Marvel Comics, and says, you guys gave Beast carte blanche to do whatever it is that he wanted to do, right? To operate however it is he needed to operate, and naturally, it became too much for him. He became more and more extreme, a darker and darker version of himself, and now he's just a straight up villain. And so where initially the Quiet Council doesn't want to see Wolverine go on a warpath and basically eradicate any version of Beast that exists out there, the reality here is they're not going to stop him because they know enough not to. They're smart enough to know Wolverine is not the guy you stop. You let Wolverine do his thing and you clean up the mess afterwards, because Wolverine is too important of an asset to be let go. He's one of the very few mutants that exist out there in Marvel Comics that doesn't actually need the mutant nation of Krakoa. It gives him a sense of home and it makes him feel like he belongs somewhere, but he can make it out there in the world by himself. He would just take off to the Canadian wilderness and just live out there for a while. And that would basically just be it. And so what this does is this switches over to Maverick. Now, Maverick was at one point a teammate of Wolverine in Marvel Comics back before Wolverine had adamantium bonded to his body when he was on a group called Team X. So him and Maverick have known each other for an incredibly long time. But Maverick has also been stealing from Krakoa, specifically Krakoan flowers that allow for enhanced abilities or curing cancer, any number of effects. And so because of this, Beast is trying to have Maverick killed. Now, one of the things to know is this guy's ridiculously capable, so much so this guy could capture Wolverine if he wanted to. He's probably one of the most capable mercenaries in the entirety of Marvel Comics. I mean, even guys like Taskmaster recognize how capable Maverick is. So you don't just go after him, right? I mean, you've really got to be careful when you do. So where these other Wolverines all show up here, they kill all of Maverick's henchmen and then kill Maverick himself, or at least go after Maverick himself. He's able to get the upper hand. He basically survives the experience, and he ends up taking one of the Wolverines with him. The funny thing here is that Beast doesn't know it, and Beast thinks that Maverick's dead. He chalks the whole thing up and says, whatever, we're done here. Because what you end up getting is Maverick underwater watching as Beast and the other Wolverines go on a retrieval mission for the Wolverine that Maverick had taken. Literally, he just leaves that version of Wolverine there as just kind of a chance to watch and see what they do. When they get close enough, Maverick detonates the submarine, blows the whole thing up, and kills that version of Beast in the process. But he doesn't fully understand everything that's going on. He takes that version of Wolverine with him, goes back to his base of operations, none the wiser to the fact that there are still other Beasts, and they're all operating according to the same mindset. That they're basically a council at this point in time. And so while Maverick is sitting there with this version of Wolverine, the Prime Wolverine shows up here. The reason for this is because he knew that Maverick would be one of the targets of Beast. So either Beast got to him already, or Beast would get to him eventually. And that would give Wolverine the chance to basically go through Maverick to get to Beast himself. And so it's one of these cool moments here, because with the two of them working together, they come to this realization, or at least Wolverine explains, Beast has gone rogue. He's going to end up triggering some kind of a world war between the human population and mutants themselves. They've got to find a way to take this guy out before his actions lead to the ruin of all. And so you switch over to the Council of Beasts, right? You've got Prime Beast and the other Beasts. And as they're all talking, the Prime Beast is talking about how they've had a lot of successful missions, everything's going off without a hitch, all that kind of stuff. Here's the problem. Prime Beast is not accounting for the one thing that he should have accounted for. By giving these different versions of himself autonomy, they eventually start to think for themselves. They start to come up with their own philosophies, ideologies. And while it's not necessarily them just defecting and going off on their own way, what they do is start to realize small things. That where Prime Beast leaves after dismissing the council itself, this Council of Beasts looks around and they say, okay, something bigger's going on here. If you guys notice, he made a change to us when he created us. He gave us nearsightedness, just this small little thing to show us that we're not quite on his level. What this is the development of resentment, right? This is the development of the very seeds that will lead to them trying to kill Beast. And so what Beast Prime does is he calls the entire council into a room and he says, I do have one final mission that we need to implement. And when they ask what it is, he instructs the Wolverines to kill every single one of those beasts, because seemingly he's realized it's only a matter of time before they turn against him. And so what he does is he says, clean up the messes, burn the bodies, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna recreate these guys and I'm going to make them more loyal. And so you switch over to a guy named Jeff Bannister. Now, Jeff Bannister is basically the current friend of Wolverine, but also has contacts in the CIA and works with a kind of anti-mutant task force. And so it's one of these things where the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That sure, the anti-mutant task force under any normal circumstance would go directly after Wolverine Prime, Beast Prime, and even Maverick. It's one of these things where they all basically end up allying themselves with Wolverine Prime and Maverick Prime because Beast Prime is the main threat here. So again, you're right, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Now, as they're going through with their mission, they're literally trying to find the base of operations for Beast himself, that one of the contacts, right, one of the members in these jets, these pilots, contacts Jeff Bannister and says, target located, right? We found one of the Wolverine clones, all the while completely unaware of the fact that it's the actual Wolverine alongside Maverick. So when they initially fire on these guys, you end up having Wolverine who figures out really fast, okay, this is Jeff Bannister's guys, they're gonna wipe us out. We have to find some way to get in contact with him. So what he does is he ends up jumping on a kind of radio and then getting a hold of Jeff. Now, where Jeff initially thinks that he's one of the clones, that Wolverine reveals some intimate details that only Jeff would know, right? That his daughter is his whole world, that Jeff himself drinks like a sailor. And so that's enough because of the fact that they've shared, a friendship and drunk in the backyard and all that kind of stuff. Jeff realizes it's the actual Wolverine. He calls off the attack and then says, what do we do, right? How do we handle this? But before they're able to figure out a solution and even muster any measure of an attack, Beast emerges out of the ocean in this giant suit, right? Like this, just the point as a living robot, blows every single ship out of the sky, eradicates what forces Jeff Bannister had, he's forced to retreat. Maverick and Wolverine escape by the skin of their teeth, and they end up in some small island town in Norway. And then one of the Wolverine clones show up with what's basically a message. They initially think it's a bomb and they effectively kill him, but it turns out to be a message. It's actually Beast getting a hold of Wolverine and saying, let's sit down and let's have a conversation. And what you get here is this really cool moment where Beast explains what his motivation is and why he's doing all of this. He even goes so far as to explain, like, yes, I know this could lead to World War III. That's fine, because it's worth the risk. The reality here is that by wiping out any and all opposition to the mutant population, that we basically safeguard our very existence. We send a message to everybody out there, do not mess with the mutant population. The response of Wolverine is, that's not going to work, because we've seen what happens when it does. And he's right. For those of you guys who don't know what I'm referencing one of the most significant stories in the history of the X-Men mythos, when Mystique and her Brotherhood of Evil Mutants executed Professor Charles Xavier of the X-Men, the leader of the team, Moira McTaggart, a mutant geneticist, and Senator Robert Kelly on national television as a display of the might of the mutant population, attempting to send the same message, do not mess with mutants. What did that lead to? Days of Future Past, where the Sentinels took over North America. It was the worst possible outcome for the mutant population. And that's where, despite everything that it is that Beast is saying, Wolverine just remains staunchly silent. He's not listening to anything this guy has to say. It's like, you have no idea what you're talking about. And he even tries to reason with him, and he's like, this isn't you, man. This is not you, Hank. I don't know how you got this way. I don't know why you're operating this way, but this is not you. Now, one of the things about this is I still stand by the theory, this is not actually Beast. This is Dark Beast, right? Beast from an alternate reality who was a really dark and sadistic version of the character that we know. This is exactly what he would do. So I really feel like this is not actually the Hank McCoy that we know. And so what Beast also reveals is that he has Jeff Bannister. And so he literally says, like, if you stay away, I stay away. As long as you stay out of my way, you can have Jeff Bannister back. And I promise you, I won't go after him. I won't go after you. I won't go after his daughter, right? Everything will be cool and you guys will effectively be safe. I mean, but this leads to Wolverine going back to the base of operations with Maverick, where they have a few of these Wolverine clones in a cell. And what they start to realize is these Wolverine clones are starting to talk. They're not able to make like complete sentences. They're able to say things like bub, out, right, let us out, kill you. Like, they're able to form sentences. They weren't designed to be that way. They were designed to be docile, primitive, and incapable of thinking for themselves. The hypothesis that Wolverine has is their healing factor is starting to kick in and is starting to build neurons inside their brain, getting them to a place where they can function on a normal level. And when Maverick asks, what does this mean? The response of Wolverine is, Beast has literally surrounded himself with an arsenal that could turn on him at any moment. And woe betide the world if an army of Wolverines with the same level of thinking and ferocity that I have spread throughout the globe, because there'll be almost no way to find them and there'll be almost no way to stop them. It really would turn into a circumstance where Wolverine would kill the Marvel Universe. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this to an end. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.